Okay, this is the TinkerBAR assembly video, and more specifically this is for assembling the spinner assembly onto the main bar. We'll cover over everything that we're going to need, including all the tools and materials. Starting to my left here is just a standard needle nose pliers. Got a 1/2-inch wood chisel. Number 1 screwdriver. If you have a fancy screwdriver, power screwdriver with the torque control, that's idea, but if not, just the normal number 1 screwdriver will be fine. And then we have a small file here, and just a piece of wire would work too, or possibly even like a needle of some kind from your sewing machine, but it's just something small you can poke through a small hole with. And then we have a Dremel tool here, which sometimes we need, but usually we do not. And then we have some marine grease here to lubricate the spinner assembly, but any kind of grease seems to be very agreeable with plastic parts. And then we actually have the parts ourselves here, and then we've got the leather gloves over here, and then we have the main bar here. So in terms of parts of what you need for the kit, you need the main bar, and then you need all the plastic parts for the spinner assembly. I forgot to mention this cup here. This cup is just to put the small items in so we don't lose them during the assembly process. So go ahead and clear off some space here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first thing is go ahead and empty out your parts bag, and you want to make sure you don't lose the screws, as they are very small. And we'll go ahead and take the screws, and we'll either leave them in the bag, or I'm just going to put them in the cup here right away so things do not get lost. They are 440 screws in case you do lose them and you need to go down to the hardware store. 3/16 marine grade is the idea thing to get. So here are the plastic parts that we have here, and we've got a little bit of cleanup work that we need to do before we can put it onto the bar itself. So using the wood chisel, and I like to wear a heavy leather glove on my left hand whenever I'm doing this. So there are some supports and other plastic pieces that need to come off the parts before we can do anything with them. So this is the nut holder here, and you can just try putting like a little bit of pressure on here, but yeah, this actually worked just fine. So that's one part that needs to come off, and just go ahead and throw that away. And then the same for these parts here. You want to try to get these plastic parts off. Take my glove off because it's a little bit easier. Sometimes these don't come off real easy. See, like that. If that happens, sometimes you got to take a wood chisel in there to get it to come, but I'm getting lucky here, and all these are just coming off. Well, that one might not come. See about this one. That one came off just fine. So on this one, if they do bind up like that, sometimes you got to take a wood chisel for that last little bit and just slide it in there to try to get that to come off. Okay. Oop, there it goes flying, but that's okay. So that's all of our parts right there. Oh, and we need to get the spinner assembly cleaned up, which is the hardest one to do. So same way with that, you can just go ahead and pull whatever will come off, and then using the needle nose pliers, go ahead and break off the last little bit there. And then you got some support material here. You might just be able to pull it off with your hands, but usually I find I got to take a wood chisel to pry off that last little bit. And yeah, there it goes. And then the file, go ahead and use the file to just clean that up on the bottom side. There's going to be some rough edges, and that's going to help it operate a little bit smoother. And I see I still got a little bit of material there, but not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and just smooth all the stuff that looks rough. Okay, and then we're going to zoom in on this just so you can get a look of what this is like here. Oops, zoomed in a little too much here. Yeah, and so you can have a little bit of roughness, and it's going to work okay. And then on this particular part here, you see that we got a bar that's going across here, and that needs to come out. So I just take the pliers in there, wiggle it forth, and that just breaks right out like that. And then a little bit of, well, actually we move to our nut assembly from here. So this is where you want to be careful not to lose the specific parts. And the nut assembly here, there'll be two sides to the screws on the nuts here. Zooming back in here. So there'll be two sides here, and there'll be a shiny side, and then there'll be a side that has like the nylon part here. And that nylon part needs to be inward when we put it in. The shiny side needs to be up. So for example, we just come over to the hole here, and I'm just going to jostle it around and get it in there. Okay, yep. So I go ahead and press that in so it doesn't fall out. And got that one in crooked, so I'm going to do it again. Still crooked. Do it one more time here. Okay. And then you need to get that thing all the way into, or it's not going to slide into the shaft later on. So you can take a screwdriver and then just put it in the center and just put some pressure on there to get it all the way flush with the plastic. And then on the other side, for some reason, that side always fits a lot looser. It just usually just falls in there and falls right out. So I keep that side up usually. And this one seems to be kind of tight, so that's good so they don't fall out. And then I go ahead and put in the other side. Yep. And I think I'm going to get lucky on this one. This one's not going to fall out. Usually when you rotate it around, they just fall right out. But this one looks real good. So from this point here, we have to insert the nut assembly into this shaft here. And we notice that we have that opening right there. So you want to approximately line it up. And you can see that hole is kind of lined up there. And we got to push it all the way through until it gets to those center holes. So if you can get that lined up as close as you can on that line, that's going to make things easier down the road. Now here in the shop, I've got this little tool here that's real handy. It's got a little flat space here. But you can use any 3/4 inch pipe or 1/2 inch wood dowel, just something to push it up through there to get things lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and just push that thing in. And there's the red part. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this a little bit closer. And we're trying to get that hole lined up. I don't see it anywhere. I think possibly, oh, yeah, I went too far is what I did. So if you went too far, just go ahead, spin it around the other way. And try again. Okay, so I'm wiggling it back. There it is. No, I went too far. Too far again. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to zoom back out here. So this is probably the hardest part, is to get those holes lined up the correct way. I got this off the camera here right now just so I can see it a little bit better. There it is. Okay. Okay, so if you're looking, go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. It's off a little bit there, but I'm going to go ahead and just rotate a little bit, and then you see it coming into the hole position right there. So that's what we're looking to get. And as soon as you see that position right there, take your little needle or metal wire or something, or little file, and anchor that hole right away so you don't lose it. Then moving on to the next part, you've got the retainer here, and we're going to zoom back out. This retainer needs to go on first, and just go ahead and put that over, and if it slides right on, that's great. If it doesn't slide right on, a lot of times you have to take your Dremel tool, which is this, run around in there a little bit, just to kind of clean it up, and then it's good to go. But this one's good, it just goes right on, no problem. And you want to get it up to the hole there, and then you're ready to do the first screw. So this is a number 1 screw on here, and I've got this set to a number 3, and that might be equivalent to 3 Newton force, but whether it's your hand or an electric screwdriver or whatever, it doesn't take much force for this, very little force. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the hole here, and I'm going to screw that down. Okay, and then it doesn't really even have to be tight. That first one could actually be like a half a turn loose, and that will help things line up a little bit better when you get to the back side. And then now we're ready to move on to the actual spinner, and we use a little bit of marine grease, and I just take a little bit and put just a little dab here in the corner. That's it. A little bit dab, that's all I do. And then where'd my cap go? Oh, here it is. Okay, so we screw that on, and then from here you take that and you put it on the inside, just push it right through the hole and just kind of jiggle it around until it comes through that hole, and push it through your finger, and then spin it a bunch of times. Lubricate that grease around in there, and this one's real clean. I don't feel hardly any binding at all. It actually does just spin by itself like that. So if it spins that freely, you're good to go, but if it binds, you might need to sand something and get that cleaned up a little bit. Then the whole thing just goes on just like that, and then you're ready for your next spinner retainer. That goes on, and just line up the holes, and again get your screw in there, and I'm going to go ahead get that going. Okay, and then you got the 2 screws on the back side. Get the first one in there. And then get the last one. Not having trouble with this one. Yeah, it looks okay. It looks like it's lined up. Might be just me. Okay. Lined up here. Okay. Then I'm going to torque them all down. Come to the other side. Okay. Then that's pretty much it. You're done. So you should be able to hold this thing here, and you should be able to just spin it around like that if that's good. You should be able to hold this part here and just take the whole thing, and the whole thing should just spin like that real nice and free. And then that's pretty much it. You're all finished and ready to go. And if you were doing a conversion from a wider or smaller bar, all you do is just disconnect this one and unscrew this and unscrew that side, slide that off, slide this off, and you're ready to slide it onto a different width bar. So that's it for the spinner assembly. And then your next step would be moving on to the end cap assembly for putting on the end caps.